and it's time for us to talk about mental health. Remember, this is Purple Month. The month of May is set aside to shed light on mental health issues, the associated stigmas and challenges that it comes with. I'll be joined by Dr. Elsie Abakisi to get into the topic of bipolar disorder, as referenced in our Hotline documentary, When the Mind is Not. Dr. Elsie Abakisi, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. The name is Abakisi.
Abakisi.
Yes,
Oh, beautiful
yes.
Smile. Thank you for joining
Thank
us.
you. Thank you.
Now, I think we should start the conversation by putting this in perspective. A lot of people, almost everyone I know, when I talk about mental health, they think I'm exaggerating it. So let's put it in perspective. How crucial is it that we take mental health issues seriously? Even if you don't have a problem, just regular checks and everything you can do to stay sane. How crucial is it?
So mental health is very, very, very crucial because it basically defines you as a person. It affects your work, your family, major areas of functioning. So, for instance, if your mental health is down, that means that you can't work, or when you work, you cannot produce maximum results as will be expected. And even in your social life, you'd realize that you cannot connect very well with the people close to you, you know. And even when you have medical conditions also, you may not even tend to pay attention to that because at that point, you are out of touch with reality. So, yeah, so mental health is very, very crucial.
So let's draw the line then. Does it mean
Yes.
everyone who wants to take mental health seriously have a problem, or they're just being cautious so that they can live healthier lives?
Oh, yeah. So it's being cautious so that you can live healthier lives. Yeah.
All right. So now let's pivot into the topic for today, bipolar disorder. Could you please, first of all, give us a little brief on what this is and how to look out for it?
Okay. Thank you very much. So bipolar disorder or bipolar affective disorder is one of the psychiatric conditions you know. It is chronic and it's episodic. Now, it has to do with periods of mania, hypomania, or depression. I would explain what that means.
Right.
So mania simply means that you have an occurrence of where you have extreme happiness, euphoria, irritability, with increased energy and increased activity, subjective activity. This is normally accompanied with either racing thoughts, like we heard in the documentary. You could also easily be distracted. So you'd see that the person can't seem to focus, little things take him off or on. You tend to have a decreased need for sleep. So then that means that you sleep for a short while, you wake up and your energies are still very high. And then you would also tend to be impulsive. And so by virtue of that, you tend to engage in risky behaviors. You heard her say that there were times where she would go into the shop, just buy anything, give it out. You have some people who would just start taking alcohol substances. You would find some people who then tend to engage in sexual activities, etc. So anything that poses a risk or that can become a risk to you. And then you would also realize that apart from these things, people tend to also have an overvalued self-esteem. So you'd see that some of them tend to believe that they are either very important people than they usually are. And so as a result of that, you see that they tend to engage in activities that are risky because at that point, they think that they have that extra ability, you know, to do things that they normally would not be able to do. Yes, and some also become, as a result of their impulsivity, you would hear of suicide because then they take their lives, you know, not really wanting to, but that impulsive drive happens. So those are some of the things that you will find. Now, this normally would occur within a period of a week unless medication comes in. And like I said, it will impair your function markedly. and you would have.
I'm sorry, did you say it lasts for a week? So when
Yes.
you have an episode, it lasts for a period of 1 week?
Yes,
okay.
a minimum of a week.
Minimum.
Or sometimes you see that we intervene before a week. So when an intervention comes in, it doesn't change the diagnosis, okay? And then you could have this only, and you can make a diagnosis of bipolar, or you could have a mixed episode where you'd see that a person tends to move from this to a very depressive state. So you'd have a period of 2 weeks where within that period of 2 weeks, this client or patient tends to have low moods. You know, he or she would have lost interest in the things he loves to do. He has this sense of worthlessness, excessive guilt, which is out of keeping in whatever the situation is. You see that he tends to be very slow, fatigued. He will tell you he doesn't know what he's done, but he just doesn't have the edge. He's feeling tired. You would also see that his sleep is poor, and his appetite or her appetite also is decreased. Yes, and that hopelessness, that feeling, that sense that there's nothing that would really ever work. And then as a result of that, some of them tend to be suicidal. Yes.
So like a personality that is completely opposite from the one that you normally have. But where does this come from? I mean, we know that even from the documentary, we heard that the influence of drugs plays a big role in there. But what are the known causes of bipolar disorder? Where does it come from?
Yes. So bipolar, actually, we cannot put a single thing to say that bipolar is caused by A, B, or C. But we have certain factors that interplay that may contribute to you having bipolar. So one is genetics. So sorry to say this, but bipolar is the single condition that has a high likelihood of it being transmitted down to generations, okay? Because then it has this hereditary nature. So that's one. So you have that genetic factor. Then sometimes you have when there are issues with brain function, brain structure, you know, maybe the way that the chemicals in the body are either not enough or something has gone wrong, etc. Or even in the function, brain function itself. Then you have environmental factors also, where again you have factors like substances coming into play. You have very stressful conditions, etc. All these can trigger. And then you would also have it co-occurring with other medical conditions or other conditions. So you'd see that somebody may be having anxiety and suddenly has depression and suddenly has bipolar, or the person has a personality disorder and has it, or thyroid, where the person tends to have low levels of the thyroid hormone, and as a result of that, the person tends to have this mood instability or depression and that sort. Yes.
So those who are at risk are people who have a history, family history of some mental health issues, or particularly bipolar disorder. Now, I know a lot of people who would throw around that word bipolar as an insult, you know, so you're doing something crazy and they say you have bipolar. But I would like you to clarify that no one person, except your medical practitioner, can diagnose the other person of being bipolar. Is that correct? And if so, what are the processes, or how do you diagnose or be sure that what you have is actually bipolar disorder?
Yes. So with bipolar disorder, apart from the psychiatrists and the medical officers or anybody trained in mental health, together with the psychologists and all those who are trained to pick up these conditions. So we have specific diagnostic criteria that make us say that this is bipolar or this is not bipolar. And we can't make a diagnosis without the relative, because most of the time the history is key. So the relative comes and gives you a chronological sequence of events where the person they'll tell you that there's something off about this girl of us. We realized, or this male or female or child of us, we realized that this child for the last week, there's something off. She's very irritable, her energies are very high, accompanied with those other symptoms I mentioned, where easily distractible, a decreased need for sleep, risky behavior, etc. And yes, so that's how we come with the diagnosis. Or you have cases where the person has a depressive episodes, but then you are sure that the patient would have had a hypomanic episode or a manic episode before, and then we make the diagnosis of bipolar. Now, it's not one of those conditions that you'd say, go to the lab and do a full blood count, take your blood, because most of the time that's what we tend to get. Patients will come and say, but you haven't taken my blood, or what does my blood say? It's not one of those. It's basically based on our history. That's how we make the diagnosis. Though we normally carry out investigations. The essence of the investigations is to rule out causes, because you can have bipolar, which is secondary to something else, a medical condition, substance, etc. So it's very important. And not only ruling out those other conditions or causing conditions, but sometimes they may be co-occurring conditions. And so we always will do some lab investigations.
So, I mean, we've gotten into the details of what this issue really is. Now, let's talk about management strategies or treatment options, if there are any. How do you treat bipolar? Or if someone is diagnosed with bipolar disorder, how do they manage living with that?
Yes. The treatment is very holistic. We normally use what we call a biopsychosocial approach, with emphasis on the psychosocial approach apart from the pharmacological approach. So basically, patients are put first on medication. We have medication which we call mood stabilizers. And these mood stabilizers, as the word suggests, they stabilize your mood. So we have certain mood stabilizers which we use. I'm sure you'd have heard about drugs like lithium. You would have heard of valproic acid, sodium valproic acid. You would have heard of maybe carbamazepine, lamotrigine. These are some of the medications we use. But the psychosocial dimension is equally important, because the patient will have to be able to deal with the condition, and be able to function very well in society. And so that's where the psychologist comes in, to teach the patient techniques and strategies, not just to recognize symptoms, but how to live with it, what to do to live with it, and also family support and everything. So, yes.
Can it be cured?
Very interesting question. Bipolar cannot be cured. It cannot be cured. It can be managed.
Okay, and you mentioned support from families. I'm sure there are some people watching us now who have a family member or friend who has bipolar. Let's speak to those people on how they can support these patients, if I should call them that, because there are some myths about bipolar disorder that you also, on this platform, you should give us, I'm giving you the opportunity to help us dispel these myths. So first, about how we can support people we know who have bipolar disorder, and some of the misconceptions about this issue that you should put clarity on.
Yes. So how to support these patients? First, everybody deserves love, and that's very key. You deserve love. You deserve to be accepted, because you didn't choose the condition. So you'd realize that there's a lot of discrimination in the family because one person has bipolar. Remember, he or she did not choose the illness. He didn't go anywhere and buy it. So he would need your love, your support. What do I mean by this? Now, there are certain triggers that you should help the patients to be able to identify these triggers. I haven't talked about the triggers, but if there's time, I'll talk about the triggers.
Please do. Yes, absolutely. We have about 5 minutes, but that's important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So you would have to help these people with the triggers. What are some of the triggers? You have stressful situations. So either loss of job, work situations, marriages, anything that's a form of stress. Yes. Marriages, every marriage has its issue, but there are some that are constantly, that you have a lot of quarreling, arguments, etc. Those can trigger bipolar, you know.
I actually want to stay here for a little bit longer. It might be a myth, but I mean, this is a chance for us to clarify. I heard that when you go to Pantang, there are more women than men, and most of them are there as a result of broken hearts or issues from marriages and, amorous relationships. How true is that?
That can be true because it is a trigger, and it is a very, very serious trigger. It is a very, very serious trigger. So yes, you will find many women who tend to be on admission because of these issues, marriages, amorous relationships, very much, yes. But remember, that's not the only trigger, right?
Yeah, of course.
Sometimes, apart from that, you could also have changing sleep patterns, you know. So work can change your sleeping patterns, you know. Events, you know, even the jet lag that we normally have, that can affect that. Then you could also have extreme of change in climates and weather conditions, you know. So here we are lucky we don't have winter, but it's known that at the beginning of winter, many of our patients tend to have more of the manic episode. And when they get into summer, you tend to have more of the depressive episode. So when we turn it to what we have here, that means at the beginning of the raining season, there's a likelihood that you would see that we have more cases of mania coming in, and then depression coming in, and during the summer you have more of mania coming in. And then apart from that, you also have hormonal changes. Okay? We know that hormones do change, but especially with females, pregnancy, you know, and menopause. So with pregnancy, after the woman delivers, you see that there's a swift change in hormones, right? And sleep patterns at that time, and then medication. So all that become risk factors, you know, to trigger these conditions, and menopause also. And apart from that, also sometimes even deficiencies in certain vitamins like vitamin B12 and vitamin D have been known to trigger these, have been known to be triggers to bipolar.
What role does drugs?
Yes, very important is substance use.
Right.
That is the drug use. Very, very, very important. Because research has shown that 1 in 5 patients who have bipolar, who have been diagnosed with bipolar, have substance use disorders. And most of the time, alcohol is the chief suspect, you know. So alcohol, methamphetamine, cocaine, etc. Yes, so these do trigger. These are some of the
Dr. Abakisi, we don't have time to exhaust all the issues around this topic, but I'm sure that there are some there's some way that if you want to find information on this, you could go to. So do you have any idea or where we can get resources for our audience who want to read more or find out more about bipolar disorder?
Yes. So for our audience who want to find out more about bipolar, we know that we have the internet where you can get all the information. In the internet, is
that a trusted source?
Okay, so I'm coming to that. So the internet, because we have the Mental Health Authority, that puts a lot. We have a Facebook page, the Mental Health Authority. We have a Facebook page that you can find very reliable information about bipolar. Yes, and so for Ghana, I would say yes, let's follow Mental Health Authority on Facebook. On Instagram, you would find us and you would have very authentic information. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Elsie Abakisi, who's a psychiatrist, helping us shed light on bipolar disorder in reference to our documentary, When the Mind Is Not. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, that's it for this belt of the conversation. Remember not to just browse on the internet. Go to specific pages, the Mental Health Authority, for more information. We'll take a break now, and when we come back, the photo of the day, and then we'll wrap it up properly like we always do. We'll be right back.